I kind of want to finish this interview so I can run off and start on some of these business ideas. I'm incredibly inspired. I wish I had a pen and paper right here. Fortunately, I can just watch it online later, so that works well. You've given us so much to think about here. The stats, I feel this area of agro-processing is a huge, huge need in the country. If someone is actually sitting here and going, okay, if I wanted to do one of these things, because I think and sometimes you can, the painting of the picture can be quite attractive, but actually when you take your first step to do it, it's like blockade after blockade after blockade, and actually you need some character traits to really get there. But what even practical steps would you say to people when it goes there? And then my other question, to bring it back, and I know there'll be questions in the room, so be thinking when we open the floor up, we want to hear your questions, and we'll make some time for that. We hear of very few companies that actually sell their company. It's almost, the country it hasn't felt like it's at a stage where we're seeing so many exit of businesses. I think you said an opportunity came up and you got rid of it. I assume you meant you sold your shares or you got out. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey of selling your company, but then bring us back to some of the practical steps in bringing some of these ideas to life if we wanted to.
To your first question, comment, I apologize, my throat is giving up a little bit, but not completely. If you have an idea with this notion or sense of fearlessness, you have to suspend disbelief. Okay? You have to suspend disbelief. You cannot have doubters around you. You cannot have negativity drag you into the sewer, because it's impossible. You know what they say about why the chicken crossed the street?
To get to the other side.
Many different answers, right? And the important thing is you eventually have to cross the street to get to the other side. So why stop now? If you stay on the side of the street, you'll stay at the side of the street, and you'll wonder why the grass is growing around your feet. Okay? I'll give you an example of a company in selling in Ethiopia. And I won't use my example because it's complicated. About 500 Ethiopian businessmen and women got together and decided to open a brewery to produce a local beer. And they called the brewery, and it's still around today, Raya Beer. You've heard of Raya Beer? Okay. The share price about 8 years ago was 1,400 birr. 1,400 birr. So now comes a very big, giant brewery company who wants to buy as much breweries as possible, and their share price, 7,800 birr. So is there a market for building a startup company and finding someone who will jump in and say, I want to buy your company? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Is there private equity money and funds who are interested? But you need to be patient for 3 years. Have audited statements of your business. Show that you have a track record of paying back any loans that you have, of producing consistently, having a good business plan. And private equity money is here and waiting. There is money that will come and invest in your company or buy you out. Thirdly, there are foreign companies who want to come into Ethiopia and work and create a business opportunity. What are they looking for? Number one, right now I'm working with 2 companies who are interested in buying out existing companies in certain categories. Why do they do that? It's easy to get started when you have an existing company. So rather than fly into Addis, take a room in a hotel, and then run around trying to get the land, trying to hire people and get the market and all this. If I flew into town and I have the money, I'd come and make an offer to buy your company. You have a good track record, you have a good product line, and you have an opportunity to grow and expand. That's the future. That's the future. Keep your eyes open, okay? Tiger Brands, huge food production company out of the South Africa, came into Ethiopia and did a joint venture with East African Holdings. Asked them their experience. It was wonderful, profitable. They got into Ethiopia, they produced a lot. So yes, there is opportunity for resale of companies and higher value for companies.
Thank you so much. Incredibly practical and incredibly informative. For the interest of time, we're going to open up the floor quickly to a number of questions. In case you're sleeping, that woke us up. But we'll move into that now. So if you have any questions, let's quickly hear it. Just say it, I'll repeat it out loud, and then we'll hand it to Daniel to answer. So let's go. Yes. Maybe say your name as well. And yeah.
Okay, so my name is Rohan, and it's really great to be here with all this crowd and with all these useful life experiences that you share with us, Mr. Gad, and thank you so much for that. So just 2-3 questions that I have for you is, where you come from the US, did you come with a lot of savings with your pockets, or were there any investors behind your back, or did you start from a corporate like Bethlehem that you mentioned? I just want to hear your story on how you get started when it comes to Ethiopia. You know, speaking of entrepreneurship, we all struggle on how we get started, you know, in our business. And can you share us your experience in that? And then, you know, how did you connect the dots in terms of markets? Like, you say you travel a lot before you start your businesses, and then you see the markets, you know, perhaps. But in reality, when you actually do the business, how do you connect the dots? How do you connect the value chains of your businesses? And then, you know, how do you reach out to your potential customers and then sell, you know, your stuff out there? And how, the first question really, how do you raise funds for your business? Did you start small and make them bigger through time, or did you start big? Right? And secondly, how do you figure out the value chains of your business? And thanks again for sharing your experience.
Great. Thank you for those 2 questions. For those that didn't hear, to summarize, and this will be of interest to lots of people because this can feel like the first hurdle, which is how do you actually fund your own idea, and do you need that capital? And so the question directed at Gad is, did you have a whole lot of savings that came with you, or how did you set up the financing from the start? And then the second was just, how do you get your product to market?
We're not even dating, and you want me to give you a financial disclosure. So I want a prenup. Here's the thing, without making it personal. I worked as a salary man. I worked for a company, and I worked like everybody, got my salary plus a bonus and whatever else. And you do your savings. And your savings are usually in America to buy a car first, and then to have credit cards, and then to buy a house, and then, you know, more savings for your retirement and your future, and maybe if you have a family, for your children and so on. I saved my money so I could come here and invest. So yes, I had a nest egg, and I knew the limitation. After I started the flower business, I went to the Development Bank of Ethiopia and borrowed some money. So I showed them what I could do by starting with what I have, and then they were able to give me, or they were willing to give me a loan, which I paid back 100% in a shorter time than what was expected of the loan. I don't like loans, bank loans. It's a heavy thing to have over your head, especially in agriculture, because sometimes things go down and sometimes things go up. So that brings me to your second question, the value chain and how do you do that? It's a school of hard knocks. I've never grown flowers or sold them. So I didn't know what was involved and how the market in Holland or Germany ended up selling in Germany mostly. How did they want the flowers? So you have to talk to the buyer. You have to talk to the end customer who's going to receive your products. In what shape and form would you like me to deliver your flowers? You can't guess this shit. You've got to ask, and you've got to get the answer and write it down and do exactly what they said. My first shipment was 100% reject because I packed too many flowers in a box. It was good for me because that box cost me less per kilo on the air freight. When it landed in Germany, it was a messy bunch of roses that you couldn't use. And I didn't refrigerate the roses well enough. So when I got the call, it was like, oh, he's going to send me my check. And the answer was, no, we're going to send you a bill for dumping the garbage you sent us.
Oh my goodness.
Now that will set you back after you bought greenhouses, irrigation, plant material, etc. You're into this for $200,000 or $300,000. You can't muck around with this stuff. It's serious. So if you're going to go to a supermarket and say, hey, buy my peanut butter, you better be able to prove that you have hygienic conditions, that the peanut butter tastes, and you've done some testing, that you can continue to supply them. Because what a retailer doesn't want is someone who's in today and out tomorrow. You have to be there every day. So reliability, keeping your word, and keeping your quality are absolutely essential things you have to learn for whatever you do. Whether you're making peanut butter, chips, flowers, or roses, whatever it is, these are ingredients that you cannot get away from.
Brilliant. I think we'll have time for two more. One at the back there, and then one on the left here. So you go first.
My name is Corey. Thanks for sharing. Wanted to hear your opinion about crowdsourcing and how trends have gone towards crowdsourcing rather than traditional bank loans. Just what your opinion on that is and what you think of crowdsourcing.
Perfect. And then just crowdsourcing, yeah, like crowdfunding. We set this up with a crowdfund, successful crowdfund. And then your question. We'll take the two questions and then we'll.
You spoke about Holland's technological advancements in agriculture, and I wanted to ask you, how do you see overexploitation of soil and the extraction of nutrients from the soil from some agricultural?
I'm having trouble hearing you.
So soil exploitation is a thing right now you're referencing, and how do you agriculture in a way that's more green and sustainable? Is that the question? Yeah. And then just around crowdfunding. We will finish in good time, just for the sake of expectations. For the next segment, we'll move straight into that after these questions. But we'll aim to be done around 8:30, 8:45, and then a bit of time for networking, just so you guys have expectations on time. But first question was around crowdfunding, second question around renewable soils.
This is a fantastic development, very recent. It's a way of connecting people with great ideas. I know there are legal restrictions in Ethiopia about money coming in and ownership and shareholding and that sort of thing. But leave that as it is. The crowdsourcing has a fantastic opportunity to help you get off the ground with a reasonable amount of capital to get off the ground. What most of us don't realize is how much we are worth and how much capital we actually own. So I would ask you, when you start your project, to sit down and make a list of your assets. small, large, or wonderful, huge sums. Write it down, and you'll be amazed at what you'll find, how much money you've invested in yourself, in the things that you own that have value. Now, is it cashable? Some of it is. Many of you drive nice cars, right? Okay, some of you. Okay, some of you. But the value of a car, ownership in Addis Ababa, is such that the value of the car in real birr doesn't go down because of the devaluation and the foreign exchange situation. A car you bought for $2,000 after 5 years, it's the only place in the world you'll find this, is worth more than what you paid for it at that time. So my God, you drove around in your nice car, and now you want to cash it in, and you can go to someone and say, hey, I've got $3,000 of ownership, equity. I need help for another $6,000 to get me to $10,000. I've got $1,000 worth of jewelry. I'm on the way. You'd be shocked at some of the technology that's out there that makes your idea to produce whatever this agro-process, it's not that much money. It's not that much money. What's most expensive is what's in your head. That's the big value. Now, soil. Absolutely great question. We must love the soil we use. As human beings, we have been abusive, forgetful, negligent, and sometimes harmful to the soil that is the basis and foundation of life on earth. You must have practices that are very simple, like soil amendment, soil treatment, proper utilization of plant material into the soil. Soil comes from nature. It's not a place to dump motor oil. It's not a place to dump battery acid. Soil is a place where we take care of it to give us, it's the factory. It's the factory that produces the food we eat. So it makes sense to take care of it. Every farmer I've met that's from a traditional farming community will tell you, this is my biggest investment, is the soil. And that's a practice we must have. Currently, in modern agriculture, there's tremendous amount of attention being paid to soil, mainly because all of a sudden people have woken up and say, we're out of soil. We're running out of soil. We're running out of land. As urbanization increases, populations increase. By the way, there are another 2.5 million of us that will be in Ethiopia at the end of this month. It's about 9 days from now. So 2.5 million Ethiopians will have been added to the mouths we have to feed for this year, 2017. Okay? We look forward to that in 2018 when there'll be around 3 million. That's population growth. So where do we get the food? From the soil. How do we produce more food? Better soil. And so the things we do, technology we use, the practices we use, fix your soil properly. Take care of it.
Wow. I feel there's just so much to think about, so much inspiration. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Could you all just join me in thanking Daniel for his time?